Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us today on the Rhinelander podcast, where we discuss all things having to do with existence. If you are into existence and figuring out what this place is all about, then hit the subscribe button and give me a thumbs up on there. You wouldn't be here if you didn't. Hey, today we have somebody very cool with us here. We have a gentleman that we refer to him as a transformation experiencer, Mr. Jeremy Pierson. Jeremy is going to tell us about the life-changing events that took place for him here, and we're going to get to know each other here and just discuss existence. So, Jeremy, if you do you want to tell us kind of about yourself and tell us your story?
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to. Thank you. So, I struggled to try to figure out how to explain how I want to put my story out there. And so I chose the title Transformation Experiencer because I like to say that I've had to come out of the closet in multiple areas of my life. My story is not the story of a spiritual awakening. It's the story of a spiritual remembering or spiritual coming out of the closet. And the areas of my life where I've had to come out of the closet are from my sexuality to addiction to meth, alcohol, sex, and porn. And then eventually the hardest one for me was my having to come out of the closet spiritually. I've been everything from a ballroom dancer to a drug addict, from a skeptic to a psychic, from a dope dealer to a hope dealer. So that's why I say transformation, because I've been all of these complete opposites in my life, right? And so now, as a contemporary mystic and a spiritual empowerment coach, what I do is I help people to discover the truth of who and what they really are. And it all started out for me in the closet. And I say that because when I was a little kid, I had a happy childhood, but there was a period of time where right before my parents got divorced, where they were fighting a lot. And I remember my happy place, my safe place was in the closet in my bedroom. So I used to hide in there in the dark. And in that safe place, there was something with me. It felt like someone was with me. It wasn't something that I could see, but it was something that I could feel. And when I was in there with this other that was with me, I always felt safe. I felt embraced. I felt held. I felt understood. So as a 4-year-old child and even younger, I was already seeking my safety in this other place, and I never felt alone. I always felt like there was something with me. And my childhood was a very when I look back on it now, it was a very mystical childhood. Everything to me was alive. Everything to me had a personality, whether it be a toy or a flower, there were no inanimate objects to me. Absolutely everything was alive. As an adult, I look at that and we have like panpsychism and things like that. That's what it was like to be me as a child. Absolutely everything was conscious. Everything was alive. And so when my parents got divorced, I went to live with my grandmother, and this was really the best place for me to be. I like to say that I really think that I was born to my parents specifically because my father's mother was the woman that I needed to be with. So it was like as soon as I was old enough to be connected to her, they didn't need to be together anymore. And so my connection to spirituality really originated with my relationship with my grandmother. And because I was the only child and there weren't a lot of other kids around, when I started going to school, it was a very uncomfortable experience for me because I was used to being around adults all the time. And the adults in my life at that time, they never discouraged anything. It was just a really very loving situation. The only confusion being that my parents split up. And by the way, I was in the bathtub when my mom left. So I thought, as a 4-year-old child, I thought that my mom left because I was in the bathtub for too long. Yeah, I was in the bathtub for too long. It's an obvious reason why my mom would have left. And then, very soon after that, my father left. And obviously that was because I made my mom leave. So he didn't want to stay either. Right. So, and of course, I'm not going to tell anybody that I'm thinking this because if I tell you what happened, then you're going to know and then you're going to leave too. So I don't really even discover that this is what's driving my life and my relationships until I'm in my 40s before I really am able to uncover, oh my God, I believe that I destroyed my whole family because I was in the bathtub for too long. And that's always what's driving my relationships is if you find out the truth about me, you're going to leave too.
Huh?
Right? So again, in the closet, right? Hiding who I am, hiding what's happened. And living with my grandmother was a very magical place to be because with her, I never had to hide anything. I could be who I was. I could do anything I wanted to do. I never got in trouble. I never needed to get in trouble. It was just a great way to be brought up. And I think I hear that a lot from people when they talk about their grandparents in their life. There's often this unconditional loving experience. So she used to say that she would put me in a bubble when I wasn't around. So we had this psychic connection, and I remember that she had pictures she had a clairvoyant that had drawn pictures of her guardian angels, and she had them up in her bedroom. And she had a friend that we would visit a lot, and at her friend's house, they would have people come over and do psychic readings and stuff. And so I was around all of this when I was a kid. So I knew I was magic as a kid. Where it started to get confusing is when I got a little bit older and it was time to go to school. And it was about third grade where it started to really get confusing because I never really understood the other kids. They were just like these creatures that I didn't get. And I would stay standing off on the side a lot. But it was okay because I had my friends were the ones that nobody could see. I always had the others with me that were talking to me and helping me understand the environment that I'm in. So it didn't bother me that I was standing off to the side. I didn't feel alone. I didn't feel excluded. I just didn't really connect to the other kids. And I also didn't want to tell anybody what my world was like because I didn't think anybody would understand. But when I got old enough to where all of I like to watch Bewitched, right? I wanted to have a Bewitched lunchbox. I wanted to have a lunchbox with Wonder Woman on it. So these were things that I wanted, and it would have been okay with my family, but it wouldn't have been okay with the other kids. And I knew that. So now I'm in third grade. I don't know anything about being gay or anything like that, but I'm already in the closet again, right? So there I go again, knowing that I have to hide who I am because they make fun of me. They say things to me. They ask questions like, are you gay? I don't know what they're talking about, but I know that whatever they're saying, the answer needs to be no. And I start to figure out pretty quickly that I need to figure out how to act different than I'm acting. I don't know what it is that's calling this attention to me, but I need to not be me. So I just start living this life of not letting anybody know what I like, who I am, what I want, and I'm having to pretend to like things that I don't really like. So it's just creating this whole distorted world. And this just continues to grow and grow and grow. And where it really started to change after that was when my grandmother died. So I'll take you to that period of time. So my grandmother had cancer. And I remember her sitting down with me many times. We would actually often lay back to back in her bed so that I could understand what it was going to be like when she was gone. And we would have these experiences where we would just lay back to back and say, well, what's it like where you are? And I would say, oh, I see the birds outside or the flowers outside. And then she would tell me what she could see. And she would say, this is what it's going to be like. We're going to be, you're not going to be able to see me, but you're going to know that I'm here and we're still going to be able to communicate. Or sometimes she would say, it's just like, how it is when I'm in the kitchen and you're in the living room and I'm here. And so I started to learn and practice being able to communicate with her in that way. So we really bonded our relationship to get ready because we knew that she was going to die. And to me, this was a normal relationship. It was like now when I talk about it and people hear it, they go, that's absolutely not not what most people get to experience. But that was what it was like for me. Also, my grandparents used to take me to a cemetery, and we would have picnics in the cemetery. And when I went to the burial, I realized we had been having picnics on their burial plot, and I didn't know it all those years. So now when I go there, this is a place that's comfortable for me. This is a place where I already know how to sit on the grass and have conversations with my grandparents. So I really had this beautiful setup to have a spiritual life for me that would feel very natural and normal, except all the other people are not necessarily going to get it, right? So when she died, I remember my mom sitting down with me and she said, she looked at me, I had just gotten a phone call and, oh, I skipped some stuff. So my mom did eventually get custody of me again. And that was hard for me because I had been with her long enough that I didn't really know who my mom was anymore. And now my mom's showing up in with her new fiance at the time. And all I'm thinking is, are you going to leave me again? Right. So I'm just trying to figure out, now I've got to be someone for you. I don't know how to be, anyway. So it was very complicated. So I'm living with my mom. My grandmother dies and I'm lost. Like, I don't know. That was the one person that really knew who I was and could see me for who I was and who I could be myself around. So immediately I resorted to Ouija boards, lighting candles, whatever I could do to try to find her again. And I was able to do that. And I became really kind of obsessed with it. So through that period of time, it was like it moved me in the direction of finding the other kids that were my age, that were teenagers that would be into stuff like that. And I found them. I found the kids that smoked cigarettes in the back of the school and that were in drama and, stuff like that. So that was where I found my tribe, was by getting involved in the theater kids, and started ditching school because I didn't want to go to school anymore. I just wanted to be hanging out with these people so we could have our little seances and cast spells and do all of our magic stuff that we were doing. And we were getting into all kinds of stuff.
Real quick question for you, because I don't know. I think we're in the same kind of age bracket here. Were you part of like the Marilyn Manson crowd?
Oh no, but I see why you're saying that. Yeah. I was more
Each guys were into that at my school, so that's why I was wondering if it was.
Oh yeah. No, I was really into Depeche Mode.
Oh, okay.
So that was kind of my jam. Yeah. Because I graduated in '93.
Oh, okay. Well, you look way, way younger. I thought
I look way younger than I am. Yeah. No, I'm 51.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm 51. I don't know why I look as young as I do, but I think it has something to do with all the drugs.
Yeah, exactly. I think alcohol, like, it keeps you from aging. It's like,
Yeah, right. Well, so mine was, so more I did meth. And what I like to say is, so maybe what if I only aged according to how often I slept? So then I'm like 23. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So where was I? So it was, so grandma died and I'm ditching school and all of these kind of things, just really getting into all the metaphysical stuff. And so that's just the direction that I went. And I was able to do that with these people and I felt really accepted. And so that was a nice transition for me for a while, but I got into drugs, and when I got into drugs, I really felt what I needed to feel, because then I could finally be who I wanted to be. Because if I was around people I couldn't be myself around, it's okay because I'm numb enough that I don't have to feel that. So alcohol was there quite a bit for a while, and then eventually I tried crystal meth, and that just took me off in a direction that was absolutely unmanageable. And so that activated my sex addiction and my porn addiction. And they even got into, because it was so expensive, I couldn't afford it. So I had to start doing things that I wouldn't have wanted to do to make money. And so sex became very, very distorted. Something that should be a positive experience to me was very full of shame and guilt. And so sex and shame sort of became intertwined as an addiction. So, things got really bad, right? And I became completely obsessed with sex and drugs, and that was everything for me. And this is where my ballroom dancing career starts, which is like a really weird time to enter a ballroom dancing career. But um, I was at a party and I was showing someone some dance moves, and somebody who was a ballroom dance instructor pulled me aside and said, "You know what? You're a really natural teacher. I think that you should check out the training program over here at the dance studio that I worked at." And at the time, I was going to college, and I had only been there for a couple of semesters, and I was going to be a psychologist. And no, I'm going to be a psychologist. I'm not going to be a dance instructor. You're crazy. You know what I'm talking about. And he said, "Well, just come check it out anyways." And this is an important part of the story because my story is very driven by spirit. I don't know what's good for me. I don't know. I think I know what's good for me, and I think I'm going this direction, and then spirit comes in and I go a completely different direction, and it's the right thing. So I go and I check out this training program, and then 2 weeks later I drop out of college and I start my career, my 30-year career as a professional ballroom dance instructor. And I had no, that wasn't in my mind at all. I had no clue that that was going to happen. Um, but I'm on meth, right? So I'm a ballroom dance instructor on meth. It's really unmanageable, and I'm getting arrested. It's getting to the point that everything's about to fall apart. And I remember my first spiritual experience with archangels happened, and I was in my apartment. At this point in time, we didn't have cell phones yet, so we still had to go to pay phones or have your landline. And my landline was shut off. Didn't have any money left. My roommate at the time had been invited by the police department to stay indefinitely with them, and I didn't have any money left. I had no drugs left. I'm coming down, going through withdrawal, and somebody had stolen my phone book. And so I was completely hopeless. I had no way to get through it. It's like the darkest possible situation for an addict, right? And I remember I was starting to contemplate possible suicide. I'm starting to just think of, I can't figure out another way out of this other than to just end my life. And I looked up and the ceiling started to turn dark. And in the center of it, this light came through, and the silhouette of something started coming towards me. And it was in the shape of an angel, but it was completely black and gray. It wasn't the way I would have thought an angel would look. It was dark, and it was ominous, and it was really intense. I wasn't afraid though, but I knew something really intense was about to happen. And I remember what I was feeling. The feeling that I had was just, I can't. And it came, and it just wrapped me up in its wings. And it was like, it felt to me like I was just inside of a cocoon. And then everything just faded to black. And the next thing I knew, I woke up and I was clean, and I was motivated, and I wanted to go to work. And I would like to say that I got sober after that. I didn't. But what I can say is that in a moment of my deepest despair, when I said, I can't, something happened, and it took care of me. And I didn't have to go through withdrawal. I mean, I should have had to go through several days of detox, but I didn't. It's just, I just went to sleep. And when I woke up, I was completely clean. And I didn't want to use drugs. I wanted to go to work. So I was able to get myself up and out of that situation. It was the first time that I had an experience like that, where I had a spiritual experience where something saved me and helped me get my head back above water. And I think that can be really helpful, but it can also be harmful in a way, because I then knew that that something would save me, right? So that's not always the best thing to feel for an addict, because that kind of gives me permission, it enables me, right? It gives me permission to keep going. I did eventually get What's that?
I called it with myself. I call it with myself as you're acting like a dry drunk, basically. So you're back
Yeah.
to bad behavior, and so
Yeah.
it's a matter of time, basically. So
It's
yeah,
just a matter of time, right? Because I'm doing all the same stuff that I was doing before. I'm just not using. So it was just a matter of time before I use again. And so anyways, it does finally all fall apart. I lose my apartment. I almost lose my job. I end up in treatment, and I end up being able to stay sober for 7 years. In that period of time, I I was in a 12-step program, but I only worked 11 of the 12 steps, which means that I never dedicated myself to service to others. I only did it for myself. I did it so that I could get my life back on track. I didn't really care about helping anybody. I needed the help, right?
yeah.
I needed help. So, so I worked an 11-step program. And during that time, I devoted myself to, I became an ordained minister. It took me about 2 years to get through that process, and devoted myself to this. I always had a relationship with God. You got to remember, right from the beginning, I had the others in the closet with me. So I always knew spirituality wasn't a difficult thing, but I needed a dedicated path so that I wouldn't go back to the path that I was on. So becoming an ordained minister gave me sort of a dedication. But I also focused primarily on my career. So I started my competitive ballroom dance career, and I was very focused on a relationship that I had recently gotten in. So all the things that they tell you not to do in the first year, right? So in the first year of recovery, they tell you not to focus on those things. But I did focus on those things. And as soon as I worked my 11-step program, I stopped going to meetings. I separated from the recovery community. And eventually, when my partner cheated on me, I didn't have the tools that I needed in order to deal with that. So I decided I would move to Albuquerque, New Mexico. And that's what in 12-step programs they call a geographic, which is not what they recommend to do. But I'm just in full flight from reality. I just decide I'm going to just go focus on my career. I'm going to go someplace where nobody knows me. And I also remember, as I was driving to Albuquerque, New Mexico, I heard a voice, and I thought it was the voice of God, but I now know it was the voice of my addiction. And it said, nobody in Albuquerque knows. They don't know that you should be going to meetings. They have no idea. So that means I don't have to. I got a clean slate, right? So I get to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and the first night I'm there, I go to the local bar. It's the first thing I do. But I don't drink, because I know if I drink, I'm going to use meth. And I know if I use meth, I'm going back to jail. So I'm not going to do that. But I just need to make some friends, right? And since I don't have community, I only know one place to go. So I start making friends. And what happens during that time is, for the next 2 years, I don't drink, but I go to the bar every single night. Every night after work, I go to the bar. But eventually, you know what they say about if you go to the barber shop, eventually you're going to get your hair cut, right? Yeah. So eventually I felt so disconnected from the people I was hanging out with all the time, because they're all drinking and using and I'm not. So it's not working anymore. So I decide I'm going to conduct an experiment and see what happens if I have a glass of wine. And the worst thing that could have happened. Absolutely nothing. You see, because I had a checklist. My checklist was, as long as it's, so I woke up in my clothes, in my bed, I wasn't arrested, right? So to me, that's a win. Now, to the average person, that's an abnormal checklist, right? That's not the bar normally, right? But my bar is so low. Right. So anyway, so it's only a matter of just a few weeks before I'm drinking hard alcohol every night. It's only a matter of a few months before I'm doing meth again. And I'm in a psychosis. I end up just saying a bunch of really horrible shit to my boss's wife. And so they end up telling me, you're going to have to go. So they help me get a job back in California, and I get asked to leave the state of New Mexico. So I go full out, because once I relapse, my addiction has been active underneath the entire time, right? So the addiction is growing over all these years. So I'm 7 years, my addiction's been growing, and I think I'm just going to pick up where I left off, but I didn't. So I have to stop. it's way worse. And so I have to figure out a way to do the drugs the way I want to do them in the amounts that I want to do because I can't afford it. And I don't want to go back to selling myself again. So I become a drug dealer. So this is where, now I'm a ballroom dancer turned into a drug dealer. And it's just a complete shit show, complete shit show. And during this time, I had really started to understand that when I'm teaching, I'm really in connection with spirit. And I now understand the reason I'm so in connection with spirit when I'm teaching is because I'm being of service to others. So even when I'm on drugs, when I'm teaching, I feel that connection to spirit that I'm always looking for, right? And even when I was a drug dealer, people would come to me for advice, right? So sometimes people will say, well, if you're in your addiction and you're on drugs, you can't connect to spirit. That's not true. At least it wasn't true for me, right? I absolutely was connected to spirit. And I always felt best when I was helping people, is when I felt best. The problem is, because I'm an addict, I can't keep it going. Eventually, I become so self-obsessed and self-absorbed that that I can't be around people anymore, right? I just can't do it. I can't be helpful to anybody. And when I can't be helpful to people, I'm not myself. And it just feels like I'm gonna die. It's awful. So yeah. So do you want me to go to when I get sober or?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Cause that's the next thing I'm seeing next. So I hit bottom. And I hit bottom because nothing's working anymore. Nothing's working. And when I hit bottom, I was supposed to I was supposed to go the next morning to see my family in Oregon. And it was December 23rd. And I had been doing drugs for like a week straight. And one of the things about addiction for me is I'm not only allergic to the drugs, but I'm also allergic to holidays and airports. Because anytime you put those two together, I can't do it. I can't do it. So I ended up in a drug-induced psychosis where I thought I turned into a werewolf. I still remember it very clearly. I was a werewolf and I'm out hunting for sex and I'm driving my car around like an absolute mad person. I like to say that in my memory, it was like the scene from 101 Dalmatians where Cruella de Vil is driving the car and she's just a beast and she's driving around corners on two wheels. It was like that. I was just absolutely insane. I hit multiple cars. I don't know. I don't know how long I was out there driving around, but I thought I was trying to get back home, but I'm just driving all around Long Beach, the city that I live in, and I can't find my way back home. And I remember at one point I thought that I was in a Christmas parade because of all the lights that were flashing. What I would later find out is that those were the police chasing me, right?
Yeah.
So I think that I'm a werewolf in a Christmas parade and everything's going fine. And I end up driving my car into the side of the library at 8:30 in the morning. And I remember when I got out of the car and I was sitting on the curb. It was for the first time. I'd been arrested multiple times, but this time I had no plan to talk my way out of it. I wanted to be arrested. I wanted to. I wanted it to be done. And I remember I just felt like the universe just turned into a big ball and just rolled over me and just flattened me out. There was nothing left, no fight left at all. And that saved my life because if I had any fight left in me, I would have resisted and or who knows what. But because I didn't resist and because I said yes to everything they did, I told them everything I had in my possession before they found it. Somehow the charges ended up being dropped eventually. And I really believe it was because I made the decision at that point to dedicate my life into a different direction. I didn't know what that direction was going to be. But again, like with the experience when Archangel Michael came in, I was saying, I can't. I can't. I'm done. And to me, and this is what I like to tell people when they want to know, how do I call angelic help? How do I call divine assistance? You just say, I can. You just say, I can't.
Yeah.
Help me, I can't. Right? Then you just give up. And that's the call. That's it. That's all you need. The assistance will always be there. But you have to fully admit defeat, right? And ask and really mean it. And I really did want help. But I knew the 12-step program wasn't going to work for me. I knew it wasn't going to work. There's no way it's going to work because I've tried that before and that just doesn't work for me. So I'm going through my 10-day detox period here in my apartment, and which is brutal because I have drugs still in my apartment and I'm not using them. And the only reason I'm not using them is because I remember there was a hand on my chest that kept me sitting in my chair in my living room. And every time I went to sit up, it would just push me back down. It was stronger than I was, but it wasn't scary. Very similar to that feeling of when the archangel came in. It was very intense. It was a dark force, but dark doesn't mean bad. It just was, it vibrated with my darkness that I was in. It's like it could meet me where I was at without me feeling. If anything beautiful or divine had come in that I could see, I would have felt less than. This didn't make me feel less than. This was something that matched my darkness, matched my wretchedness, and just said, we're just going to stay right here. And it also reminds me of that same feeling that I had when I was a kid in the closet. Right? It was in the darkness with me. And it just let me know that I wasn't alone, that I could get through it. And so eventually, after 10 days, we're sitting in the living room and my partner's there with me and was trying to tell me that I needed to figure out something. I needed to go to meetings. I needed to go to a treatment center. I needed to do something. And I just wasn't ready. And then at some point, I just said out loud, I need to go to a meeting and I need to go right now. And it was absolutely a spiritual experience because I remember thinking, who just said that? That wasn't me, right? Because I didn't want to do that, but something spoke through me. And I like to say that I was possessed by the Holy Spirit. And so we went to my first meeting and when I got to that meeting, the same thing happened at the end of the meeting. They said, does anybody have any announcements, as they say at the end of meetings? And my hand raised itself. And I thought, what's that happening for? I'm not doing that. It's completely against my will. And out of my mouth, it said, I need a sponsor. I need a commitment. Something's taken over my body completely. Right. And so, yeah. And I started doing everything that I was supposed to do. And immediately dedicated myself to service because I knew I needed to work step 12. That was the piece that was missing, is my life is not mine anymore. I'm supposed to be dead. I'm not supposed to have made it. So this isn't even my life anymore. This life belongs to something else or someone else. So my life became dedicated to service immediately. And I started doing everything that people told me to do, which definitely shows that something happened because I'm not that person. If you tell me what to do, I can't do it. I have to do the opposite of what you tell me to do, right? And so now I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do, and I'm going to meetings all day. I'm not working anymore. I'm just devoting myself to my recovery. And I remember one day I was coming home from a meeting and I got in an argument with someone at the meeting and I was really upset. And I was going to use, and I still had drugs in my apartment. And so I was walking towards my apartment, and just as I got to the gate of my apartment, I heard a voice, and it said, keep walking. And I knew that voice. It was what I used to have when I was a kid. That feeling of the world was my friend. It was coming back alive again. And it told me to keep walking. And so I started walking. I went for a walk, and I was walking down towards the beach, and I walked for a few blocks, and then I thought, well, I'm going to turn around and walk back home. And it said, keep walking. So I kept walking. I walked all the way down to the beach. And then when I got to the water,
Hey everybody, welcome back. As you can see, we had a little bit of a glitch in things here. We've been able to keep things kind of the same, but we've actually had some time in between the last time Jeremy and I spoke and today, and we had kind of a little weird glitch that happened that we think kind of happened for a positive reason for some different stuff. So, Jerry, you take it from there. You know where you were at in the story, and if you just kind of want to go into how your thoughts on things, let's go from there.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Ryan. Yeah, so it's been like a month and a half that just went by in this like 2 seconds for everybody else. And so I know where I was in my story, but I remember where when I was sharing that I was starting to hear these voices in my head saying, "You're spending too much time talking about the addiction, and we're not talking enough about spirituality." And I was starting to feel insecure. And right at that moment, the glitch happened, and I remember thinking, "Oh, thank you." I needed something to snap me out of it, but it wasn't that something needed to snap me out of the way I was telling my stories. I needed something to snap me out of the fear and the insecurity and the self-doubt because a lot has happened in this month and a half. Well, one thing that's really happened is my understanding of where my skepticism of myself and my insecurities really come from has become more clear to me. Um, I also was thinking this interesting thing too is I always loved Bewitched when I was a kid, and I feel like I don't know what it's going to look like to the people watching this, but there's going to be a moment where there's a little bit of a glitch, and it's like I just realized I don't have the same jewelry on that I had. Like there's going to be some differences, and I've always wanted a moment like that, like in Bewitched where she'd snap her fingers and things would be different, and so that's what just looked like. But what I think is interesting about that analogy is that those magical, mystical experiences often take a long time. They don't always happen in just a split second. So I'm a very different person today than I was a month and a half ago. My life is completely different. However, it could look like to another person like it happened suddenly. And I think that spiritual experiences and spiritual awakenings are often like that, where somebody might say, "Wow, you just changed all of a sudden. You just got sober all of a sudden and everything was different." It's like, no, that was something that took me 45 years for that to happen. But to someone on the outside watching it, it would appear to be a sudden shift, right? So I felt like that was a like spirit's way of saying like we need to talk about that. We need to talk about how these things happen. And for me, I'm what I refer to, I identify as a contemporary mystic, meaning that my my mystical experiences are not grounded and centered in ancient texts or anything like that. Although I'm not saying anything bad about that. There are a lot of really amazing ancient texts that I do follow and do hold and revere. But my mystical experiences are coming through everyday experiences, the conversations with people, technology. It could be AI. It could be something on my YouTube stream. It could be a billboard as I'm driving. It could be really anything. And so that's what I refer to as being a contemporary mystic, meaning that it doesn't have to be an apparition floating at the end of my head or something like that. Although I had some experiences like that, those weren't the experiences that changed my life. The experiences that changed my life or that really make a difference to me are the ordinary, everyday mystical experiences that I think a lot of people are overlooking. So that's my thing on that glitch is I believe it was divinely guided. I think that it was time in my story for me to pivot to go down the more spiritual path, but also it was more to shake me out of I had this self-doubt that was setting in, right? And that's been through my story all the way through is just this denying myself, thinking that I'm not right or I'm too much or I've gone the wrong way or I'm doing things wrong. And so in the last month and a half, the two major changes that have happened for me is my mom died and then I also I resigned at my job. So those are major major shifts. And I don't know if we'll talk about that or not, but I just wanted to say it as like and I know that you've been through a lot too. And so we're sitting here as two completely different people. And on the outside, probably nobody would even know.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
It's fascinating to me, right? Um, so where I was in my story. is I don't remember everything that I had shared, but I know where I was in the story. So I was on the walk, right? I was on the walk where I was receiving the guidance that was telling me to keep walking. And so what was happening there is I was reconnecting with spirit again. I was reconnecting with that internal guidance that would, and it was like it didn't tell me what to do. It it felt very different than that. It felt because at that point in my life, or really at any point in my life, I'm not the type of person somebody can tell them what to do. Tell me what to do, I'm going to do the opposite. So this particular guidance, wherever it was coming from, could deliver it in a way that worked for me. And it was more like it was narrating what I was going to do next. It felt like when I would hear it or feel it or know it, it's just what I would do next. There was no part of me that wanted to do anything different than what it was telling me to do. So it told me to keep walking. And what ended up happening is I ended up going on this 8 mile walk that day. And that 8 mile walk didn't just keep me from going back into my apartment and using. But what happened is I met people and people smiled at me and I saw things. And it was like the world became alive again, like it was when I was a kid. All the color was back in the flowers again. And I felt like the animals were talking to me again. It was just, I got myself back on that walk. And that was what I had always wanted, was to feel like I did when I was a kid, right? And and I saw things. I remember thinking, I went down to the beach and there was a pier and I saw the pier and I thought, has that pier always been here? I've been living here for years and I didn't know there was a pier. I did drugs under that pier. I sold drugs on the pier, but I didn't ever notice there was a pier. It was just like seeing the world in a whole different way. And I looked at the water and the water had these little speckles in it. And it was like each one of them was like a sun. It was the reflection of the sun, but each one was a full uh, hologram of the sun. I just was seeing the world in a way that I hadn't seen it since I was a little kid. And so every day for a while, I went on this walk and it reconnected me to my community again. So just that little bit of guidance, keep walking, reconnected me. And so my faith in that internal guidance system became alive again. And so I so I got into recovery again, and this time though I did something different. As I worked the 12th step, because I don't remember if I said this or not, but I had worked an 11-step program before, which means I did all the internal work, but I didn't share it with anybody. I didn't care about being of service to anybody, and that's really the whole spirit of the 12-step program, is service to others. And this time, it just was the most natural thing in the world, is to be of service to others. And what happened is something I never expected, which was that I also received the guidance that said, you have to get honest about your spirituality. There was no way I was going to be able to stay sober this time if I didn't tell the truth about my psychic experiences that I was having. And I thought, I can't do that. If I do that, people are going to think I'm crazy. People are going to reject me. But the way I was living my life was unacceptable. So I just thought it was like, what am I going to lose, right? I got nothing to lose. So I start telling my story and I start sharing that I'm having these spiritual experiences, and it was all good. Only good came from it. And when I started sponsoring people and being able to sit with people and tell them the deepest, darkest secrets that I held, the things that I would not share from the podium, the thing that I would not share with the group, I would not tell people. But if I saw somebody struggling and I would feel or know or hear that it was one of those same issues, I would receive spiritual guidance that would say, hey, you need to tell the person this part of your story. And so I would share something that I would never tell anybody. And I would see something shift in them. And so realizing that the things that I thought were the most shameful things in my life were actually going to be the most precious experiences that I would have, the things that I could share with people so that they could know that it's okay to be who they are.
Yeah.
They're not broken. They're not bad. They're not wrong. They don't need to be ashamed of themselves. Well, in doing that, it became clear that it's okay for me to be who I am. And what I found out is that all along, I wasn't skeptical of myself. I wasn't full of self-doubt. I was skeptical of you. I was afraid of you. I was afraid that I was going to be rejected or criticized or punished or hurt, right? So all these years of hiding myself in so many different ways, from my sexuality to my addictions and ultimately my spirituality, was keeping me from being able to experience love. And that was a twist of fate that I never expected, that the only way to experience freedom and love in my life, real love, would be to get honest about the things that I thought nobody would love. And to just come out of the closet about everything. And so, and do I still struggle with it? Absolutely. Absolutely. That's because I still, now that I'm starting to do podcasts and come out in the spiritual community, now I'm worried that the spiritual community is going to doubt me or criticize me or anything. It's like, no matter where I go, this is always this ghost is still chasing me, right? But one of the final frontiers was, how do I share my story without um hurting my parents or disappointing my parents? But you know what? My mom now is one of my angels. And to have that happen, and I gotta tell you, what it's been like to experience the death of my mother was so different than I thought it was gonna be. I can't imagine what it would have been like if I was still in addiction and still hiding myself, but this has been such a precious, beautiful experience. It's mind blowing because I've got all this community around me, and I have such this strong and deep connection with spirit now, where I just feel like I have such a direct connection with her. And I feel like having been in recovery and worked the steps, and this is what a message I'd like to send out to everybody: clean up your relationships. Because the fact that I have no grievances with my mom, the fact that I have accepted her exactly the way she was, and I felt like because of that I was able to be who I wanted to be. When she died, although it's been very painful, it's been very clean pain. It's not full of resentment and guilt or shame. It feels very right. It feels, like I said, very precious. And I just think that's the most important thing that we can do for ourselves, is to get our relationships cleaned up so that the people that you love know that you love them, and the people that love you know that you know they love you. And it just feels so free to not have to worry about, should I have done this or should I have done that? And that's a gift that the 12 steps have given me. And being open about my spirituality has given me that I never thought was going to be.
Yeah. So then we will go back for a little bit here. So you said recently, with all the different experiences, and when we spoke the other day, you said you had gotten kind of motivated to say, you know what?
Yeah,
In my resignation, I've got some disagreements. It's just not the direction I need to go. Great for those people, not the
that's all.
direction for me.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's, so I was working in treatment, and I'm still working with people with substance use issues, and I still facilitate groups and things like that. But what I needed, so there was a place I was working at, which a place that I love passionately. I was there for 5 years, but it was time for me to pivot and really start focusing on my spiritual coaching business, because there's something happening in the world right now, and it's time to start helping people come out of the closet. That's just, I've been working with people, focusing on addiction for many years, and now it's time for me to make that shift, because I've come out of the spiritual closet, and it's time for me to help other people do the same thing, because it's time to start reconnecting to ourselves. And to me, it's really about not letting anybody else tell me what my principles should be, what my morals should be, what my spirituality should be, what spirituality should look like. And I'm I call myself a spiritual first responder right now in the world,
Yeah.
where I feel like there's this major spiritual trauma happening and has been happening for a long time, but it's coming to a head right now. And I feel like there are people on this planet that are specifically here for a specific purpose, and they're starting to find it, right? And they're finding it at this point in time for a particular reason, and it's because we're those spiritual first responders. And to me, what that looks like is I can't get caught up in the politics right now. I can't get caught up in those type of things being why I choose to be of service to someone or not be of service to someone. It's time for those of us that are spiritual first responders to really dedicate ourselves to service to others. But we can't do that if we aren't in service to ourselves also. We have to take care of ourselves. The only way that I can really be there to help someone else is if I'm who I authentically am. And that takes a lot of work. That is not easy to do because that means I have to get past my fears. I actually have to use my fears to guide me. I have to be able to feel my fears, not avoid them. I have to be able to feel the negative emotions, not avoid them, because they're messengers. Those fears and negative emotions are messengers that are going to point me in the direction of who I can help. But that's only going to be able to happen if I allow them to come forward and do the shadow work and the spiritual work that needs to happen.
That's awesome. I'm going to throw something out there. Some people will recognize this, some people don't, but it's a principle I think that that needs to be utilized many times, not just in a recovery program, but um, sometimes you go to a meeting or something and you hear somebody say like, "Oh, I feel bad because I'm spending all this time on myself and I'm doing this and blah blah blah, and I'm not there for everything else." And people will be like, "Dude, you need to run a selfish program and fix you before you can go out there running around fixing everybody else. You cannot be there for others, and you can give proper advice if that advice is coming from sort of skewed thing going on in yourself where you don't even understand who you are and stuff." So I always tell people, I said, running a selfish program doesn't mean you give the finger to everybody out there and tell them I hate you. I have no empathy for anybody. No, it just means, hey guys, time out. I gotta go work out at the gym. I'll be back in 45 minutes. You gotta pull that kind of stuff with people sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you keep your going, yeah.
Yeah. So I remember when I was in my first year of recovery and I was working at a metaphysical shop. And I remember I was like, I'm ready to be a spiritual teacher and I'm going to do readings for people and I'm going to do all this stuff. And she said, wait. You need to take about 5 years to really find the spiritual teachings and live them. And I was so insulted by that because I was ready. I was ready to save the world, right? And I will tell you, it took 5 years. It was exactly the right amount of time. And so I have to live the spiritual teachings. I can't just read about them. I can't just see them on a YouTube channel and go, yeah, that's the way to go. I got to go teach this to people. That's not how that works. You have to live them because you have to me, what attracts people to me is that they see it, not because I tell them I'm a spiritual teacher, but that they see things in the way that I live my life. And that's that in 12-step communities, we say attraction rather than promotion, right? And that's really what it is it's and the law of attraction is based on your frequency. It's not based on what you want, it's based on what you are. So learning to live my life that way first before I go and try to give it away to everybody, right? So, and that's hard to do. It's hard to do because you're also being told you have to be of service to others. The only way for you to stay sober. And at the same time, you have to be able to have boundaries and say no and say, I can't right now. I got to take care of myself. I got to like right now, it was like, I've got to pivot in this other direction. And I felt like, stepping away from my job at this facility, I felt like was letting a lot of people down. And to be honest, it is letting a lot of people down. It honestly is. But it was a decision that I had to make. And so learning how to navigate that, how, selfishness is not a bad thing.
Right.
No principle is bad.
It's right. Exactly. I said this to me for, going to the gym, learning how to fight if you're in the street. Yeah, that's
nice.
There's a reason for it, but start a fight with somebody. That's the opposite reason for it. So yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So learning the difference between taking care of yourself and neglecting others. It's two very different things.
Yeah. Yeah, I think and I'm gonna throw something else out there too, because I've seen this happen a lot of times. And if anybody's hearing this that is getting this kind of pressure, please take a step back and talk to somebody else. Many of times I've seen people who are supposed, oh, I know I'm a program guru. I'm this guy recovery wise, and I can tell you everything. And I've seen horrible advice be given. Yeah, anybody tries pressuring you that you need to be out doing more service for others, or if anybody starts making you feel there's anything wrong with you because you don't see things the same way there, go around and get some other opinions. Start
I love what you just said.
some type of people and stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, just in general, if if somebody's making you feel like there's something wrong with you, period,
exactly.
right? The guidance that I'm looking for in my life, and this is how I learned to discern the difference between if I'm following fear or following spirit,
Hmm.
is that spirit never makes me feel bad about myself. Spirit never makes me feel guilty or regretful or shamed or anything like that. Spirit always makes me feel motivated and empowered. And that's why I call myself a spiritual empowerment coach, meaning that I'm just supporting people and being able to find how to tune into guidance that empowers them and doesn't make them feel like there's something wrong with them. Because feeling that there's something wrong with you is at the source of all of our problems, right? It always stems from, in the 12 steps, we have this thing where they call it character defects, which is not my favorite way of labeling it, but it's just the way it's the way, right? But I think my only character defect was thinking that there was a defect in my character. That
Mhm.
that was the only one. That was it. Everything was based on there's something wrong with me and I'm not going to be loved or accepted. So I have to twist and distort myself in different ways to try to be loved.
Yeah. Excellent. So, sorry to check off for saying that. So with that being said, what would you like to get into here? Do you want to talk about kind of like the different stuff you're teaching, kind of what you're planning on doing moving forwards, and whatever you want to go with, you just share.
Yeah, so I'm focusing on my coaching business now, which really just I don't really even know what that means, to be honest with you. I have one-on-one clients that I work with. But I also love doing workshops and working with groups. I love the energy of a group. Um, and I've got some book projects that I'm working on. There's just a lot of things that I've been on the back burner for years that I now want to bring out into the front. But the message that I share, so if there's anybody that you know what I would like to share with people is just this is that your story needs to be told. We need your story. This world without your story is missing something.
Yeah.
And that your the things that you're the most ashamed of, your deepest, darkest secrets are going to save your life. And the coaching that I offer is grounded in this one principle. And the principle is that when your actions are consistent with your principles, you'll have inner peace, honesty, and serenity. So when I work with someone, I don't know what you should do. I don't know what your spiritual practice should be. But what I do is I help people to learn to live authentically, to find what energetically works for them and to actually live that way. So in other words, to come out of the closet about whatever it is they're in the closet about. And I think everybody's in the closet about different things. Everybody's hiding parts of themselves. And when we talk about the shadow work, I know that it's easy for people to think about the shadow as being bad stuff, but there's a lot of great stuff in the shadow.
If you want to go, could you talk about that a little with people? There's this phrase called the dark night of the soul and shadows,
Yeah.
all this
Yeah.
stuff. No one understands what anybody's talking about. The dark night of
No.
the soul. What do you like doing black magic? No, the opposite, actually, as a matter of fact. So,
Yeah, so my coaching business is called Practical Spirituality. So this is why I like to demystify things, right? So the shadow is where parts of myself have been put that I find to be unacceptable for whatever reason. It doesn't mean that they're bad. It means a lot of them are my most precious parts of me that I'm afraid that if I reveal them, someone will hurt me or use them against me. So there are a lot of things in the shadow that are wonderful aspects of me, right? So, but it's also the parts of me that I do, the ways that I act or behave or think or feel that I've been taught based on society's norms are wrong or bad. This is the thing about it, is that they're not wrong or bad. These things get put into the shadow because I'm afraid that I'm not going to be loved. That's usually what it's about. And so shadow work is about learning to love myself. It's about learning to bring the light into the shadow. See, the thing about darkness and light, they are never at war. And that's where people have this really distorted idea about darkness and light. Light and darkness never are at war. Think of a dark room. When you light a candle, the darkness does not fight the candle. It immediately recedes. Darkness always gives way to the light. It never fights it. They work together, and it's just the absence of light. So when light comes in, darkness is gone. That's it. There's no fight. And I think that's one of the big misunderstandings about it all. So light is awareness. So just by bringing awareness to something, you bring it into the light. And awareness is love. And so just letting something be seen for what it is and not hiding it anymore. If it's met with love, that part of yourself will start to talk and will start to tell the truth. When that part of yourself is met with a welcome energy, you think about when somebody says to you, "What's wrong with you?" Behind that question is the statement that there's something bad about you. Or when someone says, "Why are you doing that?" What they're saying is you're wrong or you're bad. But when somebody says, "What happened to you? What did you go through? Why are you hurting?" That's somebody saying, "I'm curious about you. I'm interested in you, and I love you." And when that is how those parts of ourselves are met, they come out of the dark and they start to tell the truth about where they came from and why they were there. And 100% of the time, these things happened as a way of self-preservation or trying to protect myself from something. And then in the shadow work, what we do is we learn to, I like to call it the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer story, where that misfit gets put up at the front and can suddenly guide the sleigh, right, in a way that nobody else could. So these parts of ourselves that were kept in the dark for so long are allowed to come out and shine, and they become the stars of the show. And in doing that, we just feel this unconditional love for ourselves. And so the dark night of the soul is where we get to the point that we can no longer tolerate rejecting ourselves, where it's just not okay anymore. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. It's painful because the things that are difficult starts to come to the surface. So it's kind of like a pimple coming to the surface. It felt better when it was repressed, but life wasn't better because those things that were in the shadow were still making all my decisions for me, and I wasn't aware of it. So as we become more aware, the dark night of the soul is I start seeing these things more, and I start to become less tolerant of hiding. And so it gets incredibly uncomfortable. It's like a snake needing to shed its skin. A snake that wants to shed its skin is not a snake you want to be around. They are not happy. They're very, very uncomfortable. So we hit bottom in all these different ways. We just cannot continue to live that way. So that is how I would describe the dark night of the soul. It's the beginning of the awakening happening.
I've almost felt like you can see here. Number one, I was gonna say, it's, when it comes to that idea of, well, I've got this shadow and these things are bad. I told somebody, I said, if you're standing in a room, I got one light on you, you're gonna see a shadow, right? She goes, yeah. I said, okay, what if I turn off the lights? There's no light, so you're still there, right? So the whole you is still there. Nothing has changed. Nothing's gone anywhere. And what if I also don't just turn on that light, but I turn on a light from every single direction, plus the floor lights up, plus all the walls in the cube light up? You're still going to have kind of a shadow depending on where you're angled at. But in general, you've now lit up the whole area. And once again, has this shadow disappeared? No, all those qualities are still there. It's just now it's you instead of a separate thing out to the side that you're holding at a distance and keeping away from people. Because if I'm talking to you, my shadow is where? It's behind me. It's below me on the ground. It's somewhere I'm keeping it away from everybody else. I don't want them to touch it or be a part of it. but when you actually start to go, you know what? There's nothing wrong with me. There's
Yeah.
yeah, there's and like, well, do you have some bad behaviors possibly or things you're doing
Sure.
self-destructive? Sure, that's one thing. Do you have anything you identify that possibly makes you dangerous to anybody else? If so, you need to seek treatment for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's really the only two things. You can have some bad habits and maybe you have some stupid opinions too. Maybe go educate yourself a little bit if you have a problem with another group of people because of something, whatever. But that can be like, hey man, what happened to you? How come you don't like this group of people? Well, my father got shot by this guy. He was a cop and blah, blah, blah. And I went, okay, there we go. I have friends who came back from Afghanistan and, Iraq and stuff, and they went over just like me and they come back just like me. But then they said, it's really weird, man. I'm walking down the street and people from Middle Eastern things come by and I start to get, my heart starts going. He goes, I'm sure they're regular people, but it's an autonomic response. Just like if you get pulled over, I don't care if you've been drinking or not, you all of a sudden are like, oh God, what did I do? And you get the pit in your stomach as the cop walks up. And you didn't do anything. He's just like, oh yeah, your taillight's out. Oh, okay, thank God. Such a relief. But yeah, there's all this different stuff that's going on in people's subconscious. It's just like a series of computer programs running in the background that keeps interfering, slowing down your computer because you've got all this stuff running in the background, screwing stuff up. So yeah, anybody out there that is looking to change your life, I'm telling you right now, two things. Number one, start accepting responsibility for everything. Okay.
Yeah.
Whatever happened in the past, great. You're off the hook. I'm not going to hold you accountable for that. Okay. But now you've recognized that you want to move forward. So now the key to moving forward, if you want the respect of everybody on the other upper dimensions and you want to keep moving forward and stuff, is you got to start standing on your own 2 feet. And one of the big parts of that is, like you just said, number one, recognizing any flaws you have and working on things you can fix. And number two, loving yourself and realizing you're not a defective individual. I don't give a damn who's told you that in the past. It ain't true. God didn't make any junk or garbage and throw it down here.
That's right. I think that there's three major roots for addiction. And when I say addiction, I don't just mean to substances. I mean addiction to thought patterns, addiction to behaviors, addiction to lifestyles. Most people that are suffering, addiction is at the root of it. Addiction to something, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's three major roots that I've been able to notice. The first one is the idea that there's something wrong about me. I'm broken.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Number two is trauma, unresolved trauma. And number three is spiritual disconnection. And what does that mean? It means that I can't find an inner source of guidance that I can trust.
Mm-hmm.
That's spiritual disconnection. And that can look a lot of different ways. It can look like I walk into a room and it's a room full of enemies right from the beginning. That's spiritual disconnection. Because to me, spirituality just really is the knowing that we are all one, and anything based in that. And anything that goes the other way, anything that's involved in disconnection, like you're better than me, I'm better than you, you're over there, I'm over here, we're at war, that's all ego or, separation. And so those are the three things I think that a person needs to examine is, what do you think is wrong with you? What do you think is unacceptable about you? That needs to be worked on. You are definitely acceptable and you are not wrong and you are not broken. There may be fractured parts of you, but it's like what's that called? Kintsugi or something like that. It's a Japanese art form where they take broken pottery and they put it back together with liquid gold. So where there's a crack, it's now more valuable than it was before. So afterwards, it's much more valuable because it was broken than it was before. And I feel like that's the work that we do, is we find out that we're not broken. We may have fractures, but those fractures are placed where love needs to be put. And when that happens, we now are better than we were before. And then the trauma is, at some point I have to be able to say to myself, what that person did not destroy me.
Right.
And here's the forgiveness word. This is the part a lot of people don't like. And I do trauma-informed work with people, and I want to say to people, if you hear this and this feels triggering, please, talk to someone about it. Because the thing is that, and this can be hard to hear, but if what that person didn't destroy me, then in order for me to be okay, I have to say that was okay. Not that I would want it done to someone else or anything like that, but that saying it's like, I'm okay. They didn't break me. That I'm going to stop telling the story that broke me. Because what we do is we go around trying to prove to everybody, I need you to know what this person did and how much it screwed up my life. Do you need me to know that, or do you need me to know that no matter what they did, it didn't screw up your life? Which story do you want to tell? And it's your choice. You have free will to tell the story any way you want to. And this is in no way meant to be trauma shaming anybody, because I've had traumas and I've had to do the work on it. And I've realized, you know what? Fuck it. They did what they did. And it did take me down. It didn't destroy me. But the part that was hard about that is that I have to take accountability, like you said, for the fact that all these years I've been acting like it destroyed me. I have to take some accountability for the way I've been treating people because of what that person did to me. It wasn't because of what that person did to me. It's because the story that I believed about myself, and I felt like it gave me permission to act like a jerk to people.
Yeah.
But it didn't. Having been traumatized does not give me permission to abuse people.
I was dealing with somebody that is very much on the near like the anarchist side of stuff with government and everything else. Yeah, this person was arguing with thing, and it was like you were saying, I was standing there, and I just said, why are you letting them turn you into this person?
Exactly.
Did you feel this way when you were born, or did this develop because, well, I saw how things really are? No, you saw a movie that you were in a scene
Yeah.
that something bad happened, and a friend of mine who talked about this, female friend, victim of some really just like ritual abuse type stuff. And somebody asked her, like, well, oh my God, it must be horrible to tell that story at meetings and stuff. She goes, I don't. And they're like, what do you mean? She goes, I don't. She goes, here's what I do. I walk in and I say, hi, my name is so-and-so. And I'm not going to go into the details of it, but I'm a victim and survivor, keyword, of horrible things that shouldn't happen to people. Okay. She said, and the reason I'm not telling you what it is because it doesn't matter. She goes, everybody in this audience most likely has had some sort of different trauma happen to them. And no matter what it is, trauma is trauma. It feels generally the same way, whether you got your legs blown off by a landmine or somebody did something else. And she kind of said that. She goes, if I lost my legs, I'd have to learn how to walk again. It might have been traumatic. And I think she referenced her brother being in Afghanistan and being in an IED or something like that. But I just thought it was a really powerful way to go and go like, look, we can take this big circle, put a question mark in it, and that's your trauma. Okay.
Yeah.
It is either going to control you or you're going to understand it and learn to control your brain and the different stuff. And she said the first part about it is, number one, if you're feeling bad symptoms, please go and talk to somebody. Go seek professional treatment. Talking to your friends doesn't help. And quite frankly, your friends don't need to hear about this over and over again. I don't watch my friends will tell I spit on your grave. Okay. My friends wanted to go and see it. I said, no, I know exactly what the movie is. I'm not going to watch 45 minutes of sexual abuse to then watch this woman kill these three guys. You know what I can do? Forward 45 minutes and just watch her ice these three guys. And that was very satisfying to watch that happen. I want to watch the other part. It makes me feel it. But yeah, it's all of this different stuff you got going on. I'll throw this in here. I always say, there needs to be something called Being Human Anonymous or Ego Addicts Anonymous, or it's just somebody where it's just like your ego is controlling, you're addicted to that.
Yeah.
Dr. Monroe from the Monroe Institute, he was talking about people that get stuck reincarnating in these cycles, and that I don't think they're really trapped. It's just that every time they die, they've got people they want to go back and see and other stuff they want to go and do. And so, of course, they're allowed to reincarnate and do this again. At a certain point, they forget that there's anything else, and they just keep doing it over and over until something snaps them out of it. But it very much reminded me of, I've got this trauma. This is my brain set. Everybody's against me. Feeling sorry for yourself in a weird way makes you feel warm and comfortable. Oh, God, take me, mom and dad. No. But you're an adult. Okay. You're an adult. You got to stand on your own 2 feet. And whether you made a contract for something to happen beforehand, or it was just a random bad thing that happened, either way, you have to accept it. It happened. And
Well, that's the spiritual side of it that's hard for people.
exactly.
Is that I got news for you. Spiritually, that person that traumatized you is is a soul that loves you so deeply. It's really hard for people to understand that because at least that's been what I've discovered is that the agreement to be that for me in this life, to be someone that I would hate, that I would blame all my problems on, only a soul, not a person, but a soul that has a deep commitment to me would be willing to do that.
Yeah.
And in the process of doing the forgiveness work, that's what I found is that this is the thing that's hard for a lot of people, right? Like they're not going to
Yeah.
want to see it. But I just got to a point in my life where I just wasn't interested in hurting like that anymore. And in doing some of the spiritual work in meditation, I couldn't run from them anymore. They would show up, right? They would show up. And what I found was exactly that. It was these agreements that we had that was, look, I need someone to be my petty tyrant. And they volunteered to do it. And there are people in the world today right now that lots of people are thinking, well, this person is evil or whatever, yeah, I mean, that's maybe the way it's showing up right now, but it's all God, right? It's all God. It's all coming from the same source. So the only question is, what do I have to overcome so that I do not see this person as evil anymore? What do I have to overcome so that I can see? Because these dark forces, as people would call them in the world right now, and I'm talking about that on either side of the political spectrum, people are seeing dark forces on the other side. So I'm not talking about one side or another.
Yeah.
Right. I just want to be clear about that.
Full opportunity employed.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. Um, they're teachers. There are teachers, right? They're causing us to really look at ourselves. And I feel like the world right now is doing a fourth step. We're on step 4. It's time to really look deep and do a searching and fearless moral inventory of, keyword here, ourselves, not each other.
And others.
Everybody's been taking everybody else's inventory, and in 12-step programs, this is what we know. We stop doing that.
Right.
I don't stop judging people, but I know that I can't act on that judgment. I know that my job is to say, what is it in me that's being triggered? What is it in me that is ready to grow or change right now? What is it in me that I don't like, that I don't want to do anymore, that I need to learn to love and understand? Rather than how do I change that person's behavior? What'd you say?
Yeah. I had said this to you one time, that, and this is where I said, my sponsor rate at 1.2. I said, if I have to sum this up from my total experience with everything, I say, some things are planned, some things are not planned, and they're random and accident because somebody makes a terrible decision, and then you have what I'm going to call divine intervention. When you pray for help and it happens, you get these kind of three-way combination of things. And I said, let's just say that the person that did this horrible thing is not, in fact, anything you had planned out, but what if you could see their life beforehand? And this girl was talking about this. She said, some kind of an abusive boyfriend or something. And she said, he had fallen off and was ready to like smack her as she was on the ground. And she said, all of a sudden this thing happened. She just saw everything about his childhood that he had never told her about, the horrible abuse his father put her through. And she said, all of a sudden I realized this person clearly had not only a mental health problem they needed to seek treatment for, because she said, I just thought they were just really, kind of this and that. And she's like, but suddenly I recognized there was an actual problem. This is not normal behavior for a person. And number 2, she said, to this day, she said, I still don't empathize with him because of his behavior, because of the way he handled it, but I can pity him. She said, that's where I started. I started by pitying.
That's healing, right? That's healing.
It's healing. You're still feeling emotion, And she said, and then later, that's when I could, when I had, she said, I cracked I'm not going to be mad at you anymore. I've left. I'm going to not be mad at this. She had a good, gotten out of the situation at this time. But she said, yeah, that's how she had to start feeling. Was she said, at first, I'm just going to pity this person. I feel sorry for a person
Yeah.
who is stuck being like that because
Yeah.
I know how everybody thinks about them. They have no friends and they're not going to unless they change. And then eventually she said, then it really turned into looking at herself in ways that she said, yeah, I realized I was really acting out towards my mom and being really judgmental about the way she had been. And I was kind of verbally abusive with her about,
Mhm.
being unhappy with my childhood and all this stuff. And she said, it was through then seeing my own shadow of bad habits and things that I was able to go, okay, you know what? I can understand that if I can have a bad habit and a bad behavior and I'm acting out in anger towards others because I feel like I had an excuse, that is what that other person is doing. It's just that is a 6'4" guy who weighs 300 pounds as opposed to a 5 foot person that weighs 100 pounds and would never go around starting fist fights with people. So
Right.
different people dealing with it in whatever way they feel they could act out to say, here's my pain. I want you to feel it so I don't feel alone.
Well, that's the part about that in the steps where they say that we find the exact nature of our wrongs. It's not the details of what I did, it's the nature of it,
Right.
right? It was like I was held at gunpoint. So I had this resentment against this person that held me at gunpoint. And I said to my sponsor, I've never held anybody at gunpoint. You say, oh, really? You think you've never held somebody's life in your hands against their will? Anytime that I got into a car intoxicated, I was doing that.
Right.
And then we thought of so many examples of where I forced people to do things against their will. Lots of examples. That was the
Right.
nature of the wrong. It's like, oh, I've never been violent. Yeah, you have. You absolutely have. You have definitely done things that were against life
Right.
to people. Everybody has. But we get this idea that, well, it didn't look like that, so it's not as bad as that. No, this isn't about that. This is about the spiritual nature of the situation so that you can see that nobody's better or worse than anybody else. We've all done stuff and it was different, but I can understand the nature of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. There's so many places in the world too. I've no reason to go into details because that can get controversial too, but just different areas where, it's just constant nonstop fighting. Everybody's on this one side against the other, and it's just
Yeah.
nothing stopping with it. And I have no idea how to solve that problem. I don't. I'm not omnipotent, and you know what? It's not my job, honestly. So there's other bigger and better intelligences out there that can work on that and do a lot
Right.
better than I can with it. But what I can do is at least go, okay, I can be understanding of that situation and
Yes.
say, well, this really sucks. I feel so sorry for these people. I wish I had enough money, $100 trillion, to just say, hey, guess what? We're going to build an entirely new housing area and we're going to put people in there, bulldoze all these crappy structures, build more stuff up, and make this a really nice place for everybody. And hopefully everybody will get along. Well, that's great. Probably not going to be able to do that. So what I am kind of stuck with, though, is at least being understanding of somebody. You're putting out a better vibration into the world that affects the overall vibration rate of the
Yes.
planet in general.
That makes a difference. And that's the spiritual first responder energy, is that, look, as a first responder, you're not necessarily going in to save lives always. Sometimes it's just to hold someone while they die and to lie to them and tell them it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
It's just you go in with the intention to be helpful, but you don't know how. The first responder doesn't know how they're going to be helpful.
Right.
They just go in with all their tools available with the intention to be of service as best they can. And sometimes it's just to hold a person's hand. Sometimes it's to help them make a phone call. Sometimes it's just so that they can look into some loving eyes for their last breath. Sometimes it's to hook up an IV. I mean, they just don't know, right?
Right.
And it's just having that energy of, I don't know how I'm going to help, but I do know I'm going to. I know that my presence here is helpful. And that's my job, is for my presence here to be helpful, whether it's smiling at someone, giving someone a compliment, or sitting or not smiling at someone at an inappropriate time. Because you know what? Not everybody wants to be fucking cheered up. Get off my back, right?
Right. Exactly.
Sometimes someone needs someone to just go, wow, you're having a shitty day. Or gets better,
Yeah.
you know?
Totally.
Or give them some space and leave them alone. Sometimes that's sometimes that's the appropriate thing to do. Is if you feel like a person needs to be left alone, then love them by leaving them alone. Give them space.
Yeah.
So if we make the world a more comfortable place, one interaction at a time. Sometimes that one interaction is with a group of 1,000 people, or sometimes it's with one person, but it's still showing up the same way.
Yeah, there, what was I thinking of something for? Oh, yeah, so offering advice, being there, smile, cheer up, all that kind of stuff. Stop, dude. Somebody with depression, smile and cheer up does not help that person.
No, they don't need advice. They don't need to be cheered up. They need to know it's okay to feel the way they feel is what they need to know. That's
Yeah,
it.
how can I know? Is there anything I can do? I know you're going through this stuff, whatever. But most of the time, it's just kind of recognizing the person's having their own thing. But what was the? Oh shoot! Now I kind of lost my train of thought. Oh, I remember. Hold the door for people. I told you, I said I was going to start a church. I said I'm still going to make a bumper sticker for it or a T-shirt for merch or something, but it just says the Church of Hold the Door for Others. You don't have to give somebody money. You have no idea what it is sometimes when somebody is having that horrible day you're talking about. They caught their person the night before, cheating on them, and now it's Monday morning and they know that person knows they were caught. So now they're at the divorce attorney getting the papers drawn up that person knows is going to get delivered to them by 5 p.m. Here you are in the middle of this day. This guy has to go shopping or whatever, and he's walking out, and the first guy just lets the door slam in your face. And it's like,
Yeah.
thanks, awesome. Person will be like, hey, I got it, man. Here you go. Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate it. You have no idea what they can do in somebody's life, dude. You don't have to walk around making people millionaires to be able to do something. Just say to yourself, give it your best shot. You're not going to be right 100% of the time, but how can I be helpful in this situation? What can I do for the other person instead of making it about me? Are you giving somebody advice to hear your own voice so you can let everybody know that you know something and we can all go, thank you, that's great. We understand that you read a lot of books, So what's your intention? Be honest with yourself about that. That's a flaw of character, wherever you want to put it. Like, am I really talking, or you're a therapist. Why did you become a therapist? You're a doctor. Is it because you want to help people or you can make a lot of money and you're kind of a narcissist, I have friends that are doctors, Dan. Not all of them. I mean, like, I'm not friends with bad people, but I talk about this with them where they're like, yeah, dude, some of the guys in the medical field, I don't even think they have any emotions. He said it's like, dealing with, they treat people like lab rats. It's just really disturbing, but they're good at what they're doing oncology wise and it's working. What he said, it's really like dealing with somebody totally different. Yeah, no, that is the number one thing at the end of it, and I'm going to make that shirt now, I think. That really kind of, puts things together in the area. We're going on like 52 minutes here. What kind of stuff is there anything you kind of want to like get out there for everybody and then finish up? And like I can talk about like this stuff for like hours.
That's a fun conversation. I mean, this stuff we're talking about right now. Honestly, I'm the same way. I could just go on for so long because I'm so passionate about it. You're passionate about it. So to get a chance to talk to someone who's also passionate about it feels so good, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And I think this is what needs to happen more. We need to get more conversations like this going on where people can talk about, their own version of how they want to help in the world. Yeah. So as far as, the plug for my stuff is that I have a few different things. So my social media, the easiest way to find me is yeah. So you'll look at it.
I'll have all your links in the,
Great. Yeah. So the easiest way is to get a hold of me through my Instagram is probably the easiest because there's also, you can leave me a message on there or whatever. But I have something free that I do every week. It's on Saturdays. It's online as well as in person. It's called Conscious Evolution and Practical Spirituality. They're a free meditation that I lead, and then followed by a spiritual workshop every Saturday. 11:30 a.m. is the meditation, and then the workshop is at 12:30. And I'll give you the information so that you can put that in there too. But I also post it on my social media. And it's just, I do the guided meditation. It's always just string of consciousness. And then after that, we do a spiritual workshop, and I never know what the topic's going to be. But like I said, it's free. We do have it at a place called the Atlantic Alano Club here in Long Beach. It's at a 12-step fellowship hall, but it's not just for 12-step people. It's open for anybody to join. And it was just because 5 years ago we started, and it was because I felt like we needed a place for people to be able to come out spiritually and talk about spiritual stuff that they may not feel comfortable talking about other places. So that's something that I do every week that I'm really passionate about. Um, and like I said, I have my spiritual coaching business called Practical Spirituality. I use a lot of different modalities, but one of the modalities is the 12 steps. But like you said, I like to make it available for the average person. So step one is just something like, are you able to see that the way you've been living your life is causing suffering to yourself or others? It's just very simple, right?
Yeah.
I like to help people find their way to reconnect to themselves or to connect to their source of inner wisdom and strength in their own personal way, ultimately to help people to be able to live more authentically, come out of the closet. So I'm available for coaching, one-on-one coaching, also workshops, private groups, anything like that. And I do videos on my YouTube channel, so you can check out my YouTube channel too.
Perfect. Awesome. Sherry, I'll try and check this out this Saturday. Actually, I'm not sure if I'm working or what I'm doing.
Great, great. I'd love to have you. Yeah.
That going on. Yeah. Dude, yeah, we'll find some more topics and stuff to keep talking about this out. This would be great, dude. Yeah.
I'd love to get together with you again and talk because clearly we have a lot in common, and I think that we could really explore a lot of really great topics together.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, dude, thank you again for coming back on, man. I'm glad we got that. Everything happens the way it's supposed to be happening right
Yeah,
now, folks.
yeah.
I'm going to tell you, life is about to get weird for the next 24 months.
Very weird. Yeah. Hold on, everybody. It's about to get really weird. Yeah.
You're not the only intelligent life out there. If you have not
No.
figured that out yet, I would just pick up a book and just maybe look at the internet or something.
Well, that's another thing too, just to throw out there is that channeling is going to be a very important thing in the future. It's already happening. It's been happening to me for a long time. And so that's something I like to help people get in touch with too, is how to channel.
Perfect.
There's spirit guides, but also who knows what it is we're connecting to, but there are benevolent energies out there that are trying to help us to keep us from destroying ourselves right now. And if we can just basically just call out and say, I know you're there. I'm open to being part of this thing. Come and join the spiritual responders by being open to channeling benevolent energy. Please, we need more of you.
Exactly. Whenever I need help for anything or whatever, I just I go, whoever's listening, whoever can hear, whoever wants to help. I don't even care if anybody thinks you're good or bad from this.
No.
Whoever's there that can help, I got nothing to offer except thanks. And so if you want to help out of empathy or just the ability to interact with the physical world because they like that, I'm giving you permission to help me. So thank you. Awesome. Well, Jeremy, I will look forward to probably seeing you this Saturday, man, and we'll get back in touch and plan out some more topics here.
Sounds great. Yeah, I look forward to it.
All right, perfect. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it. If you enjoyed the show, thumbs it up, subscribe. Please check out Jeremy's stuff here. It's very much valuable and worth it. And we will see you next time for one more wonderful podcast. So thank you guys. Bye.